On May 13, 1981, St. Peter's Square in the Vatican turned into the stage of a shocking event that shook the entire world when deadly bullets tore through the joyful crowds gathered to see Pope John Paul II. The scene felt as if time itself had stopped, as the Pope collapsed, bleeding, amid the believers' astonishment and cries of panic. This was not just an ordinary assassination attempt. It was a complex mystery surrounded by countless theories, from the involvement of intelligence agencies to hidden political conspiracies. So, who was the mastermind behind this daring attack? And what secrets still surround this crime to this very day? To uncover more, stay with us until the end. And don't forget to support us by liking the video and subscribing to the channel so you won't miss any updates. Karol Józef Wojtyła, who would later become Pope John Paul II, was born on May 18, 1920, in the town of Wadowice, Poland, to a modest Catholic family. His father was an officer in the Polish army, while his mother was a deeply religious woman who passed away when he was only 9 years old, a loss that had a profound impact on his upbringing. After her death, his father became his main source of support, encouraging him in both education and faith, which greatly shaped his character from an early age. Karol's childhood was marked by hardship. At the age of 12, he lost his older brother, Edmund, to scarlet fever. In 1941, during World War II, his father also passed away, leaving him completely alone at a young age. Despite these tragedies, he continued his education at Jagiellonian University in Krakow, where he studied literature and philosophy. However, when the Nazi forces occupying Poland shut down the universities, he was forced to continue his studies in secret. During the German occupation, Karol worked in a stone quarry and later in a chemical factory in order to avoid deportation to forced labor camps. It was during this period that his interest in the priesthood grew stronger. In 1942, he joined an underground seminary in Krakow, where he pursued theological studies until his ordination as a priest in 1946. After his ordination, he continued his studies in Rome before returning to Poland, where he became a professor of philosophy and theology. He steadily rose within the church hierarchy, being appointed bishop in 1958 and cardinal in 1967. He became known for his wisdom and courage, especially in opposing communist rule in Poland, where he strongly defended human rights and religious freedom. On October 16, 1978, Karol Wojtyła was elected the first non-Italian pope in more than 450 years, taking the name John Paul II and beginning one of the most influential papacies in the history of the Vatican and the world. Pope John Paul II was described as one of the most influential figures of the 20th century. From the moment of his election in 1978, he played a leading role in both the Catholic Church and global politics. He sought to strengthen the unity of the Church, foster dialogue with other religions, and defend human rights. His vision centered on modernizing the Church without compromising its core teachings, which earned him immense popularity both within the Catholic community and beyond. He had a profound impact on social and political issues, using his position to support movements striving for freedom, especially in Eastern Europe. He is credited with contributing to the fall of communism in his homeland, Poland, where he supported the Solidarity movement led by Lech Wałęsa and encouraged Poles to resist Soviet rule peacefully. His anti-communist stance extended far beyond Poland, influencing other countries suffering under oppression, making him an indirect opponent of the Soviet Union during the Cold War. Interfaith dialogue was one of his highest priorities. He worked to improve relations between Catholics, Muslims, and Jews. He visited many Islamic countries and held meetings with religious leaders to foster mutual understanding. He was also the first pope to visit a Jewish synagogue and openly denounced anti-Semitism, stressing the need for reconciliation between religions. Within the church, he faced major challenges, including the sexual abuse scandals involving clergy. He initiated efforts to reform the church while preserving its traditions. Despite criticism for his conservative positions on moral issues, such as his rejection of abortion and same-sex marriage, he remained a central figure in defending the traditional values of the Catholic Church. Pope John Paul II was also known for his tireless defense of human rights. He condemned authoritarian regimes and abuses against peoples, strongly opposed wars and armed conflicts, and consistently called for peace in regions such as the Middle East, Latin America, and Africa. He advocated resolving disputes through dialogue and negotiation, sending messages of peace to world leaders. His firm opposition to economic sanctions and racial discrimination stood out as defining positions that earned him global respect. He became one of the most well-traveled popes in history, visiting more than 100 countries, using his spiritual authority to spread messages of peace and tolerance. In 1981, he survived an assassination attempt, yet forgave his attacker, an act that reflected his deep commitment to the values of forgiveness and love. On May 13, 1981, the world witnessed one of the most dramatic attempts to assassinate a prominent religious figure, when Turkish gunman Mehmet Ali Ağca opened fire on Pope John Paul II in St. Peter's Square at the Vatican. As was his custom, the Pope was greeting the crowds from his open vehicle, surrounded by thousands of faithful who had come to see him. Suddenly, gunshots shattered the joyful atmosphere, turning the moment of celebration into chaos and screams of terror. Ağca fired several bullets, two of which struck the Pope, one in the abdomen and another in the hand. The Pope immediately collapsed inside the vehicle, his face pale with pain. Panic spread among the crowd as security guards rushed to pull him away and transport him to the hospital, where he underwent hours of emergency surgery. His condition was critical, and he nearly lost his life due to severe blood loss, but doctors managed to save him in what many considered a miracle. Mehmet Ali Ağca was captured at the scene before he could escape. Carrying a forged identity card, he identified himself as a militant member of the Turkish Grey Wolves organization. Yet he never gave a clear explanation of his motives. He later admitted to planning the assassination, but the details of the plot remained shrouded in mystery. Theories soon emerged suggesting the involvement of international intelligence agencies, including the Soviet KGB, which had seen the Pope as a threat to its influence in Eastern Europe. Just weeks after his recovery, the Pope astonished the world with an extraordinary gesture of compassion. He publicly declared that he forgave Ağca for the attack. In 1983, he went even further by visiting him in prison, spending time in private conversation with his assailant. The moment left the world in awe, a living testament to the Pope's commitment to forgiveness and reconciliation. The assassination attempt became a turning point in John Paul II's life. It strengthened his resolve to spread his message of peace and unity among nations, despite coming so close to death. The event remains etched in history as one of the boldest attacks ever carried out against a religious leader, an act still surrounded by unanswered questions about who truly orchestrated the plot and why the Pope was targeted on that fateful day. Mehmet Ali Ağca was born on January 9, 1958, in the town of Malatya, Turkey, and grew up in a turbulent environment marked by political and social upheaval. As a young man, he was drawn to extremist groups and eventually joined the Grey Wolves, a radical nationalist organization involved in violent acts and political assassinations during the 1970s in Turkey. The group had links to far-right movements and secret intelligence networks, which pulled Ağca into the world of organized crime and covert operations at an early age. By the late 1970s, Ağca was carrying out criminal activities for the Grey Wolves, including arms trafficking and political assassinations. In 1979, he was implicated in the killing of Turkish journalist Abdi İpekçi, the editor-in-chief of Milliyet newspaper, known for his strong stance against political violence. After the murder, Agca was arrested, but he managed to escape prison under mysterious circumstances, raising suspicions of powerful backers operating behind the scenes. After his escape, he resurfaced in Europe, moving between countries with forged travel documents until he reached the Vatican in 1981. On May 13th of that year, he carried out his most infamous act, opening fire on Pope John Paul II in St. Peter's Square and leaving him gravely wounded. Agca was immediately apprehended but refused to reveal who had ordered him to commit the crime. His case stirred intense controversy, with theories emerging that the Soviet KGB or Bulgarian intelligence may have been involved, fearing the Pope's influence on anti-communist movements in Eastern Europe, particularly his support for Poland's Solidarity movement. Despite extensive investigations, no direct link between Agca and any intelligence service was ever proven, and his true motives remain shrouded in mystery to this day. During his imprisonment in Italy, the world was astonished when Pope John Paul II visited him in prison in 1983 for a private meeting, later declaring that he had forgiven him. This remarkable gesture embodied the Pope's lifelong commitment to mercy and forgiveness. In 2000, Agca was pardoned at the request of the Italian government and deported to Turkey, where he was sentenced again for earlier crimes before finally being released in 2010. After his release, he made contradictory statements, at times claiming he had acted on behalf of Bulgarian intelligence, and at other times insisting he acted alone. Agca has remained an enigmatic and unstable figure. He has issued controversial declarations, sometimes presenting himself as repentant, and at other times bizarrely claiming to be the Messiah. Decades after his attempt on the Pope's life, unanswered questions continue to surround his true identity, who may have been behind him, and whether his motives were political, religious, or part of a larger conspiracy that has never been fully uncovered. The assassination attempt on Pope John Paul II on May 13, 1981, marked a turning point in modern history, not only for the Catholic Church, but also for global politics and international balance. This dramatic event was far more than an attempt to kill a religious leader. It cast a long shadow over relations between superpowers, exposed the hidden tensions of the Cold War, and played a direct role in the downfall of communist regimes in Europe. Amid the Cold War, John Paul II posed a direct threat to the Soviet Union because of his strong support for the Solidarity movement in Poland, the first organized opposition within a communist state. Having a Polish pope at the head of the Catholic Church served as a catalyst for the movement. His call for freedom and human rights destabilized communist regimes. After the assassination attempt, suspicions grew about the possible involvement of Soviet intelligence, such as the KGB or Bulgarian secret services, as the USSR saw the Pope as a dangerous figure undermining its influence in Eastern Europe. Although investigations never produced definitive proof, the incident reinforced suspicions that political violence was being used to silence opposition. After surviving the attack, the Pope did not retreat from his mission. On the contrary, he became even more committed to opposing communist regimes, a stance that contributed to their eventual collapse. His historic visit to Poland following the attempt inspired millions to rise against oppression and helped accelerate the liberation process that culminated in the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 and the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991. In this sense, the attempt not only failed to silence him, but also amplified the power of his message. The event also transformed security practices within the Vatican and beyond. Before the attempt, the Pope would appear among the crowds with minimal protection. Afterward, security was tightened, and the famous armored Pope Mobile became a symbol of safeguarding religious leaders from threats. Globally, the incident reshaped the understanding of the need to protect public figures, leading to revised security protocols for large gatherings. On a spiritual level, the assassination attempt made the Pope an even more relatable and revered figure. His decision to visit Mehmet Ali Ağca in prison and publicly forgive him became a powerful symbol, reinforcing the image of the Church as an institution rooted in mercy and peace. This gesture inspired world leaders to adopt more reconciliatory approaches in dealing with adversaries. Because of the way John Paul II responded, the attempt on his life was not just an isolated event, but a historical turning point that reshaped the political and religious landscape of the world. It demonstrated that ideas can be stronger than bullets, that forgiveness can be more powerful than violence, and that one leader can alter the course of history. In the end, the assassination attempt on Pope John Paul II remains one of the most mysterious and controversial events in modern history. It was an episode where political and intelligence interests became deeply entangled, leaving many questions unanswered. Despite the arrest and trial of the assailant, the true background of the crime has never been fully revealed, making it a subject of speculation and analysis for decades. And with that, we have reached the end of our discussion. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, activate the notification bell, and join us again for another documentary.